Welcome back to IGN at Gamescom. Now I'm joined by Jonathan and Torkel of Jaeger to discuss the cycle. So tell me, for folks at home who aren't aware, what is the cycle?
Well, it's we call it a competitive quest shooter. It's PvE, where you compete against others to complete the most quests or contracts and then escape the planet alive. Does that sum it up?
I think pretty much, yeah. So it's the win condition is completing the most contracts and getting off alive, like Torkel said, and it's not last man standing, so it's not that important to kill other players. You can theoretically, you could win the match without shooting anyone, but in practice, that's not usually how it plays out. So.
It's really interesting that the victor condition is complete most contracts, because in PvE games I've seen before, there's usually a single objective, and that makes it a little bit harder to be like second place. So tell me, what are those contracts? What are those objectives?
So we have quite a few. So each match you start out and you have 4 contracts to complete, and you can complete them sort of over and over again. And we've tried to make contracts that some are more PvP focused, some are more PvE focused. So it's really about, a lot of it for us has been about how do you play the game? Like, how do you want to play this mixture of PvE and PvP? Sometimes how do you want to play it that day or that session? But just making sure that both PvE and PvP are ways that are viable. And for us that meant make sure that there's a multitude of things that you can do in the game.
Yeah, and the risk reward is different for the different contracts. And if it's all about one contract, I don't know how much PvE it really is. I think it ends up being PvP very, very heavily. And that's not necessarily always good. So you don't always necessarily want a high intensity PvP match. So.
What's really interesting about the Battle Royale genre and kind of the offshoots like PvPvE is the concept of in-match progression and every single match having a new chance to be the most powerful person on the server. So tell me about the in-match progression in this cycle.
It was his idea.
So it's essentially, it's twofold. One is that you just start out with your pistol and you have what we call a gear store. So you have the weapons that you can unlock, and then you earn credits by completing contracts and killing monsters, and then you buy your gear in the session. And you also level up, so we have a short level up track for each of our kits or classes. So at the same time as the planet is getting more and more dangerous and things are getting like bigger and scarier, other players and you are also getting bigger and stronger. So we want to have this entire match sort of grow and escalate, and then it wraps up and you do it again.
What is the thing that is kind of forcing players together towards the end, analogous to like the zone in something like Apex?
So for us, it's the evac ship that comes down at the end of the match. So once this storm has come over the planet and all the monsters are going crazy, there's one chance to escape, and it's this ship that comes down and everyone needs to get on board the ship. But they have to work together first to kill the monsters that are blocking the ship, and this leads to some interesting scenario.
It's a dilemma for the players usually.
Is it like a game of musical chairs where there's only a certain amount of seats on the evac ship?
No. There's plenty of space for everyone.
Oh, that's very nice. And generous.
So it just often doesn't work out like that. So there's a PvP kind of arena space, and the ship's landing in the middle of it. And like Torkel said, you need to clear the platform, the landing platform of monsters, or the ship just can't land. So every once in a while, it doesn't happen that often, but every once in a while, the players don't really get it together. They're too concentrated on shooting each other, and the ship can't land, and then the storm kills them. So it's not happening that often, but I like that it can happen, you know, there's that dilemma.
So what is the incentive for PvP, aside from griefing players, which to me has always been its own reward, but do I stand to gain more power?
It's something that we've worked on a lot over the last few months, actually, and maybe you could talk about the kill contracts.
So we had that. We had we have had over the last year a lot of players who kill other players, and we often said that there would be no real incentive. It would be it's worthwhile to kill someone who's ahead of you on the scoreboard, because, well, then you'll sort of leapfrog them when they die. But we recently added bounties, essentially. So if you if you kill too many players, you will get marked, and others will know where you are, and they can get points for killing you. So it can be worthwhile killing other players who have done too many, well, I guess, bad things on the planet.
Me, essentially.
Essentially,
That's
yes.
fine. So we've talked a lot about the in-game progression, but is there an out-of-match progression? Is my kind of account leveling up, so to speak, as I win more?
Yes. So we have all the things that you put in your loadout that you can buy in the in-match progression. Those come from the sort of the meta progression, where you craft new weapons, new funkier weapons, a bit stranger weapons that
Funkier,
you then
I like that.
yeah, that you can then craft, and you put that in your gear store. So the possibility space of the kind of things that you can bring with you sort of opens up the more you play. We really want to make sure that they're not better things, that it's not that you're getting more powerful things. I actually think some of our starting stuff that you get for free is probably
Too powerful.
too
some of it.
powerful. But yeah, you'll get more and more opportunities, more ways of sort of enhancing your playstyle as you go along.
And it's not just weapons, so abilities play a big part of the game as well. So you have 2 ability slots. And there's things like a heavy turret or orbital bombardment. And there's also gadgets, so things like recall teleport, healing beam, and a scanner, so you could check everything out around you. So you can really customize to your playstyle to a very high degree. And it goes even a step further because you can also modify everything. There's mods for everything. And they're not making the weapon necessarily always just better. There's some trade-off with the mods. But yeah, we're really going for this high customization of your playstyle.
You mentioned a healing beam, which is very interesting to me because when I've seen it used, it's always healing other players. Talk to me about the process of teaming up. Can you queue into a match with like a pre-made group of friends, or are the team-ups more emergent?
Well, actually both.
Yeah.
So we have a 4-man squad mode where you can queue for it alone and you'll end up with other people or with your friends. And then we have a duo mode where you can queue up for 2, and then we have our solo mode where we have a bit more emergent. We call it pacting, where anyone you see, you can invite them to essentially a 2-man team that you can break whenever you want, but that
That's
you
gonna be my next
sort of
question.
work together and at some cost, of course. But
So you would think that players would betray, right? And would break the pact and betray. But they don't do it that much. Like
we
did it a
internally,
lot.
like all
in
the time.
office.
But players are nicer
Yeah,
than we were.
It's surprising, isn't it?
I mean, they're more
You were
murderous
surprised.
than we were. Like, they kill each other much more than we did internally, but much more honest, I felt.
Yeah. When you look at games like EVE Online, you're like, I know how folks are going to behave, and then you're like, that's strange. We've talked a lot about PvP. Let's talk a little bit about PvE. Talk to me about the enemy variety, the difficulty of monsters, how it scales up throughout the match.
So, variety, we just added new droids. So we have our first new enemy type that we added in a long time. That's quite different than the sort of the planetary monsters that we have. They scale up, they get tougher, more durable, more dangerous as we go, and then we have some bigger, nastier enemies that come along.
Bosses.
So it's something that we want to work on, and we want to add more and more enemies as we go. We felt it was really important to get sort of the core PvE combat right before we just start adding more and more.
Yeah, we have
enemies.
things like the Howler. It buffs enemies or other monsters around it, so you have to kind of focus your fire there. We have big plans though for PvE.
Very cool. With those bosses, do players need to work together, or is that something a single player can tackle?
You'd have to be really good. Like, it's
Sounds
probably
like a challenge to me.
Theoretically possible, I bet, but
Yeah, I mean,
I've never done it.
We want single players to. We want you to be able to play the way you want to play, and if you want to play alone, things should sort of be doable. We have some moments that are probably not advisable. Like, it's not a good thing to try to tackle it alone. But it's been one of our biggest challenges, is making sure that these different ways that we imagine the game to be played, that they all sort of work and they're all viable. And
we don't forbid anything.
Exactly.
Let's talk about weapons. You spoke about the funkiness, and we can see something. This looks very much to me like kind of a conventional assault rifle. We have a melee there. Talk to me about some of the funkier weapons and what you're doing in that design space.
The haze launcher, that's crazy.
Yeah, so I mean, we have, for example, we have it's a rocket launcher that shoots sort of an AoE bubble, and then if you shoot this bubble, it gets bigger and bigger, and it does more damage to the things inside it, and if you shoot it enough, the whole thing explodes.
I really like that.
If you're too close, you hurt yourself.
Yeah, I think that's probably our funkiest weapon at the moment, but
I mean, the Carla is pretty cool. You're basically walking around with a large artillery piece. It looks, it looks kind of crazy.
So, yeah, I think the haze launchers are most funky weapon. But other things also, just the things that we wanted to create were mods, for example, where we had chain lightning, and then the weapon we see here is it's a charge-up beam assault rifle sort of gun, which is, it's not outlandish, but it's not just a straightforward
it's definitely
assault
mechanically
rifle.
distinct. Let's discuss the economy. There seems to be an element of strategy about kind of getting resources and then spending them. What are the prevailing strategies for early game, mid game? Kind of, can you rush into a build, or is there a late game strategy? Things like that.
I mean, our goal is that there are a lot of strategies and that they're all sort of viable. I mean, we play the game very, very differently. We're not like the high-level players of the game either, but I personally tend to be, I take too many risks, so I really want to save up all my credits and buy the biggest gun I can as soon as possible.
I don't do that. I get a gun as fast as I can and upgrade it and usually keep it and try to get 2 abilities because I'm a more PvE player, so I like abilities like cloaking and directional warp so I can get out of trouble. And he's more the guy getting into trouble.
Even though I shouldn't, because I get killed every time, but...
That's how you learn, right?
How he rolls.
What is the match length? Is it static, or is it kind of variable?
It's 20 minutes right now, so it's 20 minutes until the ship comes down and picks you up. I mean, it's variable because, well, if you die, it might be quite a bit shorter, but...
Do we have any cosmetics in the game, anything that is just for show?
Oh, a lot. We have a lot of weapon vanity. We have lots of, we have 6 different archetypes that you get. So it's a free game, so you can download it free in the Epic Game Store. And you can also mix and match between all of those 6 archetypes that I mentioned. And we're working on a lot of content for the season pass that will go out around October.
Fantastic. All right, the cycle is in open alpha?
It's now early access as of Monday.
Goodness. You guys are moving at a very quick pace, and I like it a lot.
It's been a year and a half of development.
All right, well, definitely check out the cycle. Jonathan, Torkel, thank you so much for joining me. Don't go anywhere. If you're watching at home, we've got much more Gamescom coming up, specifically Destroy All Humans. IGN at Gamescom now continues after this.